Thank you so much for joining me for another energy reading. I am tapping into the collective of my list as well as the questions that you submitted to me. Thank you for that. I hope that there is something in this message that resonates with you. But regardless, please make sure that if it doesn't resonate, just leave that for somebody else and only take with you what is meant for you here today, because we are doing a collective reading. This is not a one-to-one reading. So I just want to make sure I remind you of that before we jump in. And now if you will go ahead and take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, release your energy, and be ready to receive. Okay, so what I was feeling coming up in the energy is a lot about career. With the people on my list, we are very focused on career. And I want to start off by just kind of reassuring and I think it's really important for me to kind of set up a safe space to discuss this. I want you to know I am not going to be pitching anything or selling anything in this video just right off the bat, because I don't want part of your mind trying to figure out like, what's her angle? What's she trying to get? It's perfectly wonderful for me to try to get things. And yes, I do have offerings, but that's not what this is about. This is a time where we're going to tap into energy and give you what you need. So I just kind of want to reassure you, because I'm feeling some things pop up in the energy of like, what's her angle? Which I totally understand. So let's address it. And the way I want to approach this topic of career, there's just a lot of you that are very focused on the idea of like, I know I have a purpose and I might not always know what it is and how to act in my highest purpose. And I do, I have a lot of people here who really are purposeful about the way they manifest things and what they want. And sometimes we can be really hard on ourselves, yes. But I think it's just something that really is an important thing for a lot of people here. So I'm going to approach it from this idea of destiny versus free will, right? So we live in a system that has boundaries and borders. There is a specific matrix around us of how we operate and operate within. So for example, if I wanted to just manifest that I can breathe carbon monoxide instead of oxygen, and I only breathe carbon monoxide, it's going to take me out, right? We're not, unless I build a device or do some kind of transmuting oxygen to carbon monoxide and back and forth, unless we get like scientific and technical about it, if you inhale a lot of carbon monoxide, it's not going to go well for you, because your body was meant to inhale mostly oxygen. So we live within this society with parameters, and we live in a system with parameters. When it comes to career, our finances are really, really important. Paying the bills is really, really important. And it is a matter of safety. And we don't need to villainize that. You deserve to feel safe in the society that you live in. At the same time, society is changing a lot. There's an economy that's changing. It just ebbs and flows. The people are changing. What people value and give their money to and their attention to, that changes as well. And so it can be really confusing to show up in an empowered way and say, no, I have free will. I create my own reality. I choose my destiny. And then, also we have to give weight to the very real parameters that we have to work within on this planet and this existence. And if we want to zoom out even more, we can even say we chose this planet, we chose this existence. So technically it's all free will anyways at the end of the day. But while we're here and we technically forget a lot of that, we need to allow that balance to be within us and not beat ourselves up if we're having a hard time overcoming some parts and parameters of the system that we're in that are really challenging and difficult to work with, like finances. One thing that I want to address about our career is that sometimes we treat our career as if it's an abusive relationship where we are the victim. And the first thing I want to say about that is this is a valid, description, really, when you look at it. Based on nervous system patterns that we might have created from the first 7 years of our life, we got into certain patterns, and in those certain patterns, we have allowed relationships to occur in our life that felt familiar and comfortable, and that might not have been entirely healthy. And the relationship with you that you have with your career can absolutely be one of those relationships. So if that's you, I want to say to be as kind and compassionate as you can possibly be to yourself about that and validate that very real issue. You kind of got us by the neck because the world has us needing to pay certain things and do certain things. And at the same time, there's not a whole lot of options of what those things are when it comes to, acting in our best interest and our highest excitement. Sometimes we have to do things that we don't necessarily feel like is our highest excitement to pay those bills. And that can feel like control. And that can feel like abuse, honestly, being forced to do something you don't want to do. So I want to kind of go straight at it from that angle as well, because I just think that we can all be very hard on ourselves, and it's really important to give ourselves some compassion on this journey that we're in. And really, that leads me to my next point, which is to realize how much about your career you personalize. It's almost like a part of your identity. What you do for a living and what you do for money has the weight of also defining who you are as a person. And so when you want to identify as somebody different, or whoever you choose to identify with, that person comes with a certain career. It's kind of like, you look at the people in the magazines and you see the models there, and you know that model and the way that they're dressed might have a certain career based on their entire look, So we've kind of also been fed in our societies, medical doctors, they look like this. They wear their lab coats. They have their earpluggy thingies. I don't know. What is that? Their stethoscope. And thank you. I got you like stethoscope, Heather. And they have a certain look to them, and that kind of defines them. You also think of a doctor as being very meticulous and very on point and very maybe dry and also very matter of fact. And so it is really connected. Our career is really connected to our identity. But the thing is that we are so much more than our career. And sometimes that's the reason why it's so hard to move through our careers, is because we don't want to be a certain identity, or we do want to be a different identity, or we don't know what our career identity we want to have. But there's so much more to us than just what we do as a career. And at the same time, we are who we are no matter where we go, whether we're in a doctor's office or we're in a regular corporate office, or in a classroom, or in a session, or online. You bring your identity with you wherever you go. So I want to also reassure that part of you, that you are who you are no matter where you go, so that maybe you can give yourself another break of saying, the person who works at 7-Eleven gas station does not mean that they have a devalued energy just because they're paid an hourly wage, right? And in our culture, there's a big difference with how we value a person who works at a gas station versus a medical doctor. I mean, that's just the reality of the matrix and the system that we are in. Some careers are more respectable than others. And I don't know anybody who's ever told me their passion is to be a gas station worker at 7-Eleven, but maybe there is somebody. I kind of think there probably would be. That might be the perfect job for some people. But if we're always fighting against being disrespected, that's going to be a hard career to kind of take on to your identity. So that's, why I say it's really important to not allow your identity to become your career, but to be you no matter where you go. And on this journey, it's inevitable. Well, people will ask, what's my purpose? Am I on my path, right? Am I on the right path? But another hard thing about this journey is the first indicator that we're not on the right path is a roadblock. It's a blockage. So if there's something we want in our career and it's not happening, that is the bumper on the bowling alley lane saying, no, don't go this way, go another way. But we feel that bumper, we feel that block, and we think, why can't I go through that bumper? I want to be on the other side of that bumper. I don't want this blockage right here. But maybe the blockage is not because something's wrong with you. Maybe the blockage is a redirection toward a different place. And in fact, it must be that way. If something, they always, I don't know if you've ever heard the advice, do what your passion tells you to do until you can't do it anymore. And then do something else that feels passionate. You are allowed to take stock. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to course correct. You are allowed to go in an entirely different direction than you were sprinting toward just a minute ago. We have the right to change our minds. The wind moves in its patterns. We are allowed to have our own patterns as well. So when there is a roadblock that comes up, or if you're trying to force something to work and it's not working, give yourself the permission to say, okay, I don't really necessarily know where I need to go next, but I know it's not happening here, or I'm not desiring to do what it takes. Because sometimes we will literally shut ourselves down, shut our nervous systems down, so that we don't do what it takes to have success, not because we're doing something wrong or it's a roadblock, but because our internal guidance system is telling us, hey, I know you think you want that, but you don't actually want that because you're not willing to do the challenge that it takes to do that. And that's another way you can know if something's for you or not. Everything is challenging, but the ones that seem worth it won't stop you in your tracks. You will always feel like, okay, like for example, this is best to just illustrate with an example. If you are somebody who really needs to work out every day for your mental health and you just really love the way that it makes you feel, you will put your body through some rigorous training to work out so that you can feel good that day. And if you don't do that, it's a serious detriment. It really affects you in a negative way. So the challenge of putting your body through something difficult is totally worth the successful feeling of accomplishment, productivity, better mood, better health, so many benefits to something like that. So the challenge that you put your body through is worth it. And for a lot of those people, it's like, yeah, this sucks. This is hard, but I will do it. Nothing will stop me from doing it. I will do it because it's so important for me to do. If you can't muster up the motivation, you might not want to do the thing. You might not be wanting to do what it is you think you want to do. And that's confusing. But you have a right to change your mind, and you have a right to pause and say, where is my mind going? So, I hope with what I'm saying today, you ultimately hear that this is a tricky journey to navigate. It's not always so painfully obvious, and that the number one thing that's important is to be compassionate toward yourself, to validate that this is hard, that this is a confusing thing to figure out, and that it feels like you're being controlled and a little abused. To recognize that your identity could be wrapped up in your career, for good or bad. That might actually be a good thing too. That could be an enjoyable thing. Your ego is not a bad thing. Your ego lets you know how you want to show up in the world, and that career is part of that. But that you are so much more than what you do. So having compassion for yourself as you expand and kind of allow yourself to be who you are no matter where you are. And also to not necessarily freak out. Be compassionate to yourself when you have a blockage, because that is most likely a redirection. And the fact that you know that you're being blocked means that you're aware, you're listening to yourself, you're in conversation with your all the parts of you that matter, and ultimately that you are on the right path. So here's what I'm going to say. Right now, what feels right to do in this moment? Do that until something else feels right. And if you don't know, then sit there and don't know until you know. All of us have a different way of receiving inspiration, and all of us are motivated in different ways. So, exploring that might be it doesn't necessarily mean you're taking an action step. It could be like, I need to get more research. How do I work? What do I need? And so allow yourself to give yourself what you need in the moment until you don't need it anymore. And then give yourself the next thing. And we get tied up in like, okay, but what about 3 months from now when the bank account runs low, or when I don't know, we have a lot of deadlines for ourselves for a lot of different reasons. And in that moment, you'll do what feels right, and then you'll do the next thing that feels right. And so really, this journey is about self-trust. You will respond in the best way to take care of yourself in the moment. And you can trust yourself to do that and be compassionate as you navigate something difficult. All right, let me know how this resonated for you. And if you have any other questions, I hope to address them in my next reading as well. So just go ahead and reply to the email and let me know if this brings up anything for you. And we'll chat soon. Thanks. Bye.